Hello, people of God. Last night, after prayers, I went to seek the Lord, read the Bible, do research as I usually do, and a study that I've done many years without any success. Last night, the Lord opened my eyes to the scriptures and gave me understanding about the rapture of Elijah. Many people have wondered in what time, what season was the rapture of Elijah. The rapture of Elijah happened in Passover in the month of Nisan, and I'm going to prove it to you by the Bible. Not only that, but a series of details that confirm that the rapture of the church must happen in the month of Nisan. The first thing I want us to look at, it will be in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 1. And the Lord commands there to observe the month of Abib, which is the month of Nisan. And it is the only month that the Lord commands to observe, meaning the month of Nisan is supposed to be observed from the very first day to the very last one. It is the only month that He commanded to observe and to keep the Passover, but no other month the Lord commanded to observe. He commanded to observe the feasts of the Lord, but not the months. And in this case, when I saw that, I was like, wow. I found that a few days ago. It didn't make sense like today does. The month of Nisan, the rapture can happen any day from the very first day until the last day. But not only that, besides that, we have the information now that I'm going to give to you that the rapture of Elijah did happen in the month of Nisan. We also have the information that the month of Nisan, it's to be observed unto the very last day. And I always wondered when the Lord told Martha that her brother was going to rise from the dead. And they said, yes, Lord, we know that you will raise him from the dead in the last day. They seemed to understand what the last day was. And so there is a prophecy of the last day that can very well be the very last day of Nisan. But the important thing here is that the Lord opened my eyes to the scriptures, and after I give you the series of details of how the rapture of Elijah means exactly the rapture of the church, and then the Great Tribulation starting, because right after Elijah was taken, Elisha cursed a bunch of kids that were mocking him and telling him, go up, bold, you go up, bold. Like he was left behind, you bold, you go up. And he cursed them, and in the name of the Lord, and two bears came and slaughtered 42 kids. 42 of these children were slaughtered by the two bears because they were mocking the prophet of God. Now, these 42 represent the 42 months, the beginning of the Great Tribulation. The two bears, one of them will be Russia, the other one could be the United States. There are different interpretations about the two bears. One certainly is Russia. The other one, people have different opinions. I think in this prophecy, the second bear could be the United States, and they bring World War III. And it's 42 months. The 42 months, the 42 kids are the 42 months of the Great Tribulation, where the antichrist is given authority to rule 42 months. This happens right after the rapture of Elijah. But I want us to go to 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 1, where Elijah and Elisha were at Gilgal. Now, when you check the book of Joshua, and you see how they crossed the Jordan, they parted the waters, they went to Gilgal, then they took over Jericho, then They went to Bethel. You see the same pattern here in the rapture of Elijah. They were at Gilgal, and then they went to Bethel, and then they went to Jericho, then they went to the Jordan and parted the waters. And you have the same structures in the book of Joshua. They went to Gilgal, then they took over Jericho. They crossed the Jordan, they went to Gilgal, then they took over Jericho, and then from Bethel they were watching the kingdom of Ai, and they took over Ai and Bethel. So we have here a clear representation that the rapture of Elijah happened during the month of Nisan, and it could very well have been on the 17th of Nisan on Resurrection Day. The waters only part, that was what the Lord was showing me by His Holy Spirit. The waters only part in the month of Nisan. In the month of Nisan, the Red Sea, the waters divided, they went through on dry land. In the month of Nisan, the Israelites crossed the Jordan. In the month of Nisan, Elijah parted the waters, because the waters can only part in the month of Nisan. It is the only month the Lord commanded to observe, the entire month. And how do we know it was the month of Nisan? Well, we have the same pattern. They were in Gilgal, then they went to Bethel, then they went to Jericho, and then they divided the waters at Jordan. And then what happened right after that? The 42 kids get slaughtered by 2 bears. The Great Tribulation, 42 months of the antichrist being given authority to rule. And the 2 bears, which at least one of them is Russia, the other one possibly the United States. When that was opened to my eyes, I was like, wow. Because for years, I knew, about the Ark of Noah on the second month, the 17th of the month. I knew about Lot coming out of Sodom and Gomorrah, and he served the angels unleavened bread cakes. So that put him on second Passover, because it couldn't possibly be first Passover, because the angels were first at the camp of Abraham, and Abraham served them regular food, meaning he had already complied with the first Passover because he was without sin in front of the Lord. But Lot was living in Sodom and Gomorrah, and he felt contaminated, so he was celebrating second Passover, therefore he served them cakes. So that tells you that in the month of Nisan, the waters part open, the rapture and the resurrection happens. What happened before the Ark of Noah? Enoch was translated. It doesn't give you the specifics of how or when. He was just translated because he pleased God. But in the other hand, in the case of Elijah, we have a pattern that followed the same pattern of Joshua and the Israelites crossing the Jordan, going to Gilgal, going to Jericho, and going to Bethel. The same thing. So Elijah parted the waters. They were at Gilgal, then they went to Jericho, then they went to Bethel. They went to the Jordan. He parted the waters, because right when you part the waters, that is the transition. That's when you cross. That's when you leave this world. That's when you leave Egypt. That's when you leave the flesh behind. Amazing that the last place they went to was the Jordan. And the first place they went from Gilgal was Bethel, house of God. That's the meaning. That is the meaning of Bethel, house of God. Then they went to Jericho, just to comply with the pattern of the book of Joshua. And then they went to the Jordan, part of the waters, and then he was taken up. Meaning Elijah also was taken in the month of Nisan. And I believe that very well could have been in the Passover, during the Passover. But I could tell you one thing for sure. It was in the month of Nisan. It doesn't really matter the day, because it is the only month the Lord commanded to observe the entire month. Meaning we could leave even if it's the last day of the month, which will be from the 23rd to the 24th of April. But without a doubt, the waters only open. This is what the Lord was opening my eyes to. The waters only part open in the month of Nisan. That is why he gave a strict and a specific commandment to observe the month of Nisan, because it is the only month that the waters part open. It is the only month where resurrection, the only month where a whirlwind, the only month where we could be taken up. That's why he gave a specific commandment of following, observing the entire month, not only the Passover, the month of Nisan. It is the only month he gave an ordinance to observe the whole month. And I was like, wow, because obviously now I understand why Elijah was taking the same pattern and he went to the same places where Joshua and the Israelites were, and also part of the waters just like Joshua, because it was an obvious pattern of following up the pattern to open the waters, part the waters open, and be taken in a whirlwind. Elijah is a representation of the church that went up. Elisha, Noah, and Lot is a representation of the church that was left behind, that is kept by the Lord. The Lord takes care of them, but they are only kept in a safe haven. They are not transitioning from one world to the next. They are not. The one that did that was Enoch, before Noah, before Elisha, Elijah, and then Jesus Christ. The month of Nisan. Why? It is the only month where the waters part open. It is the only month that we have to observe the entire month. If the Passover ends on the 21st or 22nd, why shall we observe any other days? Because it is the month that you cross the Red Sea, you cross the Jordan, you cross from one world to the other world. And details about Rachel and Benjamin, when she was giving birth, like her soul was in departing. It's, the details are incredible, that they were coming from Bethel, the house of God, and she was buried in Bethlehem, which some translation have as, the Hebrew translation has it as house of bread, and the Arabic translation house of flesh. In any case, she came from the house of God and then was buried in the house of bread. Jesus is the bread of life. And it tells you that it's a pattern that a female sheep, that is the meaning of the name of Rachel, a female sheep came out of Bethel, came out of the house of God, and was buried. Her flesh was buried. She was in departing mode, and her flesh was buried in the house of bread. A clear representation of the church. And now we got the two Benjamins, as I explained in the previous videos. But the good news is, this is where the concentrated revelation is. The waters only part open in the month of Nisan. Elijah went up in a whirlwind in the month of Nisan. He followed the biblical patterns of Joshua and the Israelites crossing the Jordan, camping in Gilgal, going over Jericho, and then in Bethel. He followed the same pattern. Had I known this years ago, I would have saved me a lot of dates that didn't happen. Why? Because the waters only part open in the month of Nisan. That's why he gave us a specific commandment to observe the entire month of Nisan. And it's in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 1, observe the month of Nisan and keep the Passover. But in the other feasts that come in the other months, he doesn't say to observe the months, just the feasts. So it tells you that the month of Nisan is the one used for the rapture of the church. The second month is the one used for the left behind. That is the one. The one as the days of Noah is used for the left behind church. Now for the bride, for the ones that really please the Lord, like Elijah, like Enoch, no, they go on Nisan. The ones that really come out of Egypt, like Moses, that really please the Lord, they come out on Nisan. Like Joshua, they cross the sea, they cross the Jordan, they part the waters in the month of Nisan. We got triple parting of the waters in the month of Nisan. What can we conclude of that? That we only have 1 month, really, to part the waters, the month of Nisan. This is going faster and faster. You just turn on the news, and every news is worse than the other one. This is going at a speed that is incredible. I'm thinking in this coming week, it's more likely that we'll leave on the same day of the Lord, the third day of Passover, Resurrection Day. But if we did it and we have to wait until the very last day of the month of Nisan, it's still possible. But I know now that the waters can only part in the month of Nisan. The waters can only part in the month of Nisan, meaning we can only go up in the month of Nisan. That is why. Do you have any other why he will command us to observe the entire month? That is the only reason. He pinpointed the month of Abib. He said, observe this month. In other words, pay attention to this month, because this is when it's happening. This is when we part the waters. Stay tuned to my channel. Until next time, God bless you all. Shalom.